Well, here we are. It's a Thursday night. And since we have the next 2 nights off, we can look ahead through the weekend in the long range, which actually, by the way, in the long range has a rather promising look that we may be getting into a better pattern for rain, which I think a lot of people are at the point where it needs to change and soon. In the meantime, Hurricane Rafael moving west across the the Gulf of Mexico the long way, and what may eventually turn southward into the southwest Gulf. We'll also look at a major snowstorm underway in New Mexico and parts of Colorado. And of course, the dry weather that continues for the next several days across the Northeast and Mid Atlantic. And that's all right here on tonight's Joe and Joe
Oh,
Weather Show
weather show.
podcast.
Yes.
And and you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by shopping at the affiliate link of that's going to be pinned to the top of the chat board in a minute from Amazon. Christmas is coming up. You got to buy people presents, so use the referral link. Get your stuff. Amazon will throw us a little bit of coin for sending you there, and it doesn't cost you a dime. And we appreciate your support of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Turned out to be a little warmer today. I got to low 80s, and I have to tell you, I've had, and you've had them too. When you get used to having nights where temperatures are in the 30s and here even below and below freezing. I was out at a certain point this morning. It was maybe about 10:30 or 11 o'clock because I had to run to Home Depot. And I'm like, it's so hot. I mean, it felt like a summer day today here in North Georgia.
I don't, I did not get a chance to take a look at the high temperature that we had here in Putnam Valley, but I can tell you this, more impressive to me than the warm days that we've had, or the warm nights. The last couple of
Yes.
nights, Joe, I've had to, we've had to open our window wide just to stay cool. I kidded Renata and said, "You want me to?" Because we have central air, and so I go through the house usually in late September, early October, and close the vents on the central air conditioning system. Because if you leave them open into the chilly months, it brings down chilly air into
All right.
your respective room. So I closed all the vents. I made the comment, I think it was yesterday or the day before. I said, "Do you want me to open the vents so we could turn the air conditioning on?" Crazy, crazy these last couple of nights and early mornings too. I mean, I like
Yeah,
this morning.
we got to this morning. The low here this morning, I think, was 61. And like I said, if it's a clear night here with light winds and radiational cooling, I could easily get down into the 40s, and I've already gotten down into the 20s a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the nights in the summertime, you can bear the days if the nights are going to at least cool down into the 60s, which thankfully they do here. But in the urban areas, no, that just doesn't happen. So,
incidentally, if you want to give me sharing capabilities, not for this very moment, but a bit later in the show, we can bring up, or I can bring up the drought map, which
I think, well, I think that's a wise decision on your part.
yeah,
We can add Atlantic City now breaks their record, 36 consecutive days without measurable rainfall. Trenton, New Jersey, is at 39 consecutive days. They've just broke their record today. And here at my house, Joe, this is the 40th day of no rain. It has not rained here since Helene.
wow.
8 inches of rain with Helene. We had a little because we had the high was wedged into the southern Appalachians, so we had a northeast wind the last couple of days. So we actually had some spotty drizzle that occurred uh, both yesterday and the day before. But other than that, so I would say that we had a trace of rain, but we've had no measurable rainfall now for 40 consecutive days here, and that's really that's a I don't know what the Atlanta record is. Atlanta broke their record for having no rain, no measurable rain at all for the entire month. and of October, and that's the first time they've ever had a month without rain going back to 1878. I'm not sure where we are with the consecutive days, but 40 here has got to be pushing the upper end of the limit.
It has been dry. I mentioned a while back, not recently, but I did speak of the drought that New York City had in 1965. In '65, there was only, and it's the only, in fact, month ever where less than 30 inches of rain fell at Central,
The only year.
the only year
Yeah.
going back to 1869, 26 inches. And at one point during that drought period, and I remember it well, 1965, 66, the reservoir in New York got down to like 26%, something ridiculous. It's amazing how dry it was. Now, we have not had anything remotely approaching that since that time, but you always have to start somewhere. We had a relatively dry month of September, an exceptionally dry October. So far, November, it's been bone dry. Here we are in today, number eight. Number eight or number seven? Number seven. November 7th. And we may actually have a bit of precipitation to deal with over the upcoming weekend, the latter part of the weekend, and maybe something more significant, hopefully, by later next week.
Yeah, models are getting actually some of the models are pretty bullish for next Thursday. With that particular cold front. I'm a little and also when you look down the road, it seems like they want to flatten out the southeast ridge finally. But I'm a little cautious about that, mainly for two reasons. One is that it's been wanting to do that for the last couple of weeks, and it hasn't really happened. Um, the clues are a little stronger this time around. Also, I think there's the chance that we could see yet another tropical storm develop in the Caribbean later next week because of the fact that lower than normal pressures are still a problem there, and they still have part of that gyre that's spinning around. So if we get wind up with another tropical storm that comes out of the Caribbean, that could maybe reinforce the southeast ridge for a little while and kind of alter what the models seem to be doing in the longer term. So I get cautious about uh, whether this is a just a short-term change that allows a couple of weather systems to roll through, and then we go back to the same old nonsense we've been in, or something that's going to be quite different from what we've had. So, and there's changes in the Pacific that are going on that I think are going to be material to all of this. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and welcome to those of you who are not on the chat board for one reason or another, but prefer to stay in anonymity. WPC, we could be talking about you. Uh, Thanks for being here. If you're new, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on so you do not miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when storminess dictates that Joe and I make some extra appearances. And if you like the show, hit the like button. How about we give the winter weather lovers a bit of excitement? And they have to go to the land of enchantment to get it. But the first blizzard warnings, Joe, the first blizzard warnings of the winter season, when it well, the snow season, they're up in northeastern New Mexico. I was checking some of the local forecasts, like Las Vegas, Nevada, like Las Vegas, New Mexico. And they're going for an additional 1 to 2 feet in some places on top of what's already fallen. I haven't seen any snow accumulation amounts. There's a lot of these weather service stations don't really put them up. But and I'll look, but I'm not seeing anything on their websites. If they do put them up, they hide them so they make them difficult to find. I'm trying to see if they even have a link for their public information statements, and they do not. This is oh wait, hold on. Might get something here. Let's see. Uh Severe thunderstorm, special weather, winter weather watch. Nope, nothing here. So uh I'm just going to assume that they actually have been snowing quite a bit. We've got winter storm warnings up for much of the state of New Mexico, except the southern part of the state, and much of eastern Colorado. And I believe that includes Denver. Denver, Joe, is in a winter storm warning, 30 degrees there right now. And they are forecasting, let's see, for Denver, the Weather Service forecast is for uh, 3 to 5, and then 3 to 7, and that would be during the day, Friday and Friday night. So they're going for 6 to 12 in the Denver area. So that's exciting.
Now, my question
Yes.
is that going to be 6 to 12 inches of wet snow, which will accumulate chiefly on paved surfaces, or is this going to be I doubt
Well,
it's going to be 6 to 12 puffy, powdery type of
well,
snow.
it's 30 to Denver right now is 30 degrees. I mean, and it hasn't even started yet.
Wow.
So I'm going to say, let's just see what they're going for a low tonight. They're going for their low tonight of 30, high tomorrow 32. So I guess if it just snows heavy, I guess it's going to stick to everything. And then 29 tomorrow night, 44 for Saturday. And Sunday is sunny and 53. So whatever falls will melt away if they decide not to shovel it. But uh, somebody's getting
Maybe they
some
have the
winter
same kind
weather.
of Maybe they say it have the same kind of deal that the municipalities here in the Northeast is. In other words, they never budget for a November snowstorm. So if we have a November snowstorm,
What
watch out, 'cause the roads are not going to get cleared anytime soon. It's not until December when they start spending money on, dropping salt and plowing or whatever, usually.
we've got flood watches up on the east side of the low center, so they're up for central Texas into central Oklahoma, along with a small severe thunderstorm watch that SPC has put up. Meanwhile, uh, back to the drought situation, and this will be a good lead in for you. We've got red flag warnings up everywhere for the Northeast. Just checking out, um, even for New York City. They've got red flag warnings up for New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, all of Connecticut, all of New Jersey, uh, down to, why can't I get to the Weather Service office in Philadelphia? Down there we go. All of New Jersey, much of eastern Pennsylvania from north to south, south central PA, Maryland, Delaware, into Virginia. I mean, it's just absolutely bone dry, and you've got the drought maps to prove it.
Absolutely. And we're going to put them up right now. If I can just find the share button. Yes, there it is. And here we go. This is the very latest. This was released this morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the U.S. Drought Monitor for the northeastern part of the country. And I direct your attention to the fact that in the Hudson Valley, where I am, we now have gone, as predicted, one step up on or rung upward on the drought ladder. We're now at D1, which means moderate drought, covering not only the Hudson Valley, but also Long Island and the immediate New York City metropolitan area. And if you go into northwestern New Jersey, that's a D2, severe drought. And in fact, a D2 in fact covers a good part of northern and central New Jersey. Then you get down into southern and south central New Jersey where you see that blob of red, and that is extreme drought. So they've really been having their problems in New Jersey, especially in central and southern areas with the dry conditions. You have to go all the way, if you get on Interstate 87, all the way north of Albany, where 87 turns into the Adirondack Northway, to get into just abnormally dry conditions. And finally, as you get up toward, let's say, Plattsburgh and Saranac Lake, there is, as of this moment, no drought or dry conditions that are in effect all the way up there. But much of New York, at least abnormally dry to, in some cases, moderate drought. New Jersey, as we just noted, moderate drought, northern and central areas, severe drought, or excuse me, pardon me, more like severe drought for northern and central areas of New Jersey, extreme drought for south central sections of New Jersey, and the worst place on the list or on this map, and has been for quite a few weeks now, is in West Virginia, much of northern and central West Virginia up to, I guess, that area immediately adjacent to southwestern Pennsylvania. I guess they call that the Panhandle. That is an extreme drought. That's bad enough. But you can see there's a stripe of exceedingly dark red. In fact, it doesn't even look like red. It looks more like just a dark color. And that's D4. That is exceptional drought for them. So the driest places on the map here in the Northeast are in New Jersey, south central New Jersey, with extreme drought and extreme to exceptional drought across a good part of northern and central West Virginia. There's also extreme drought going on in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania. So we've certainly had our fair share of dry weather, and certainly is reflected in this map that shows again much of the Northeast going through dry to droughty conditions, and in some cases anywhere from extreme to exceptional dry or droughty conditions. So that's how
Check
it looks so far this week, Joe.
check out the southeast because I just took a look at it. Because what's remarkable about it is, I mean, a lot of the what you see in the southeast over Georgia, Western North Carolina, especially into Tennessee, is where Helene was, and as I mentioned earlier, vast majority of this area hasn't seen a drop of rain since, and now it's gone to the what's the yellow one? Is that abnormally dry?
Abnormally dry, D0 for the yellow areas, and that covers just about all of Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina, although parts of South Carolina are now in the D1 or moderate drought. Most of Georgia is in abnormally dry, except for the extreme southeast corner of the state. The panhandle of Florida is in abnormally dry conditions. And then you go west into Alabama, and Alabama down to the western end of the Florida panhandle ranges anywhere from severe drought to, from moderate drought to severe drought. So the only place on this map that is not really in any drought situation or problem is the Florida Peninsula, from northern down through southern Florida and the Florida Keys. They are in white, which means that there is no drought going on right now down there. But most everywhere else in the southeast, and you're absolutely right, Joe, Helene, which did such a tremendous number on many of the places in the southeast with heavy, heavy rain, especially in western North Carolina, for God's sake. I mean, they had, what, 1 and 2 feet of water on many roadways, and people were flooded out of their homes. Now, since the passage of Helene, take a look. They're in a yellow zone of D0. According to the drought monitor, they are now in abnormally dry
Yeah,
situation so soon after those tremendous rains from that tropical system.
yeah. Well, you know what? 40 days with no rain will do it, even if you had a foot of rain going into it. And we know a ton of that ran off, of course, with all the damage that was caused in Western North Carolina. Uh, just want to go. Did you want to show any more of that, or
Well, just very quickly, the rest of the country,
yeah,
it
go ahead.
seems like just about every place in the United States, the contiguous United States, is going through problems in terms of dry weather or droughty conditions. Again, the worst places, south central New Jersey, also into part of West Virginia, and also into a portion of southeastern Ohio. There's a little blotch here in south central Tennessee, and a small little dot here in southwestern Alabama. They also have, I guess you could say, severe drought across portions of Montana, bordering on North Dakota, down into Wyoming and parts of South Dakota, also western sections of Montana, and also southwestern Texas and southern Texas. But there are very few places on this map, Joe, that are just plain white with no drought concerns. Among them, as I mentioned, the Florida Panhandle, a portion of southern Missouri and into northern sections of Arkansas, maybe a portion of, well, not maybe, but southern and southwestern Colorado, and also into central and southern sections of California. That's very unusual. Normally in November after coming off what is normally a very dry series of months, the summertime in California, especially all the hot weather they have, you would anticipate um, drought conditions, but they apparently have, and I know there are wildfires out there right now in California.
Yes, around Los Angeles.
Yeah, terrible wildfires, and yet, according to this drought monitor, they are not in drought and not in abnormally dry conditions. They have they're free of drought in southern and central California.
Well, figures they find a way. I guess I don't know. It just but this isn't even they come up the summer's their dry season anyway. If they say they're not in a drought situation, then they're not in a drought situation. Just want to go back to the storm system that's bringing the big snow. I just want to show you these are additional snow amounts that are being forecast uh, in central and northern New Mexico, the northeastern part of the state, southeast Colorado. This is where we have the blizzard warnings up. So they're forecasting there for an additional couple of feet and some big amounts in southeast Colorado. The 1 foot line goes all the way up to just north of Denver, and then it starts to tail off from there. So I-25 is going to be a tough sell if you're driving. If you were to drive up I-25, starts off down near I-10, which cuts through Albuquerque, and you take I-25 north. It goes all the way up to Denver and then beyond. So this is really the first. I would, even though it has snowed in parts of the Northwest to an extent, but this is the first widespread winter storm of the very young snow season that has now begun. So on the satellite, one thing that stands out is that Hurricane Rafael has a very well developed eye, Joe. Take a look at this on the satellite loop. It's really gotten a bit better organized this evening. I'm going to check to see if there's a recon there because that's a pretty, you know, it's almost perfectly circular, both the eye and the core of the hurricane. The good news is that it's not often that we get a storm in the Gulf of Mexico that isn't going to be hitting land somewhere, and it's no threat to the United States because it's moving straight west for the most part, or maybe slightly north of due west, then going to turn west, and then eventually it's going to turn southward. But I want to see what if there's a recon there. Let's take a look on tropical tidbits, and there actually is. And it looks like the pressure's dropped down to about 964-ish millibars. And they've got some flight level winds here at about 95 miles, 95 knots. And the SFMR winds are up at about 85 or maybe a little bit more than 85 knots. So it's carrying winds of at least 100 miles an hour. Let me see what the advisory's got. 7 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center is 24.7 north, 86.2 west. And that's they're carrying top winds of 105 miles per hour, moving west northwest at 9. And you can see the Hurricane Center's forecast track, which is west northwest and then turning west and then turning southwest and south southwest over the weekend, heading down into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. And if we look at uh, we can look at some of the hurricane tracking models, and yeah, some bizarre looking tracks. There's still a couple of them that want to turn it up north and northeastward, but the vast majority go west and then south or southwest into the southwest Gulf. And as far as intensity is concerned, you can see that the intensity models late this evening, all show slow weakening that's going to occur and then eventually, almost all of these models have it down to a tropical storm in about 48 hours or so. So, and again, that makes sense given the upper air situation over the Gulf of Mexico. The water, the Gulf is not that as warm as it was just a couple of weeks ago. So that kind of hinders things from getting too out of hand. But you've got strong upper air southwesterly winds that are going to shear this thing out to some degree in the longer term. So, you know, again, not often you get a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico that doesn't wind up um, making landfall, but uh, making land on the U.S. or or somewhere.
along
I'm
the
sorry.
Gulf Coast.
Yeah,
You know,
thank you.
right.
I'm
I,
having a senior moment because I'm trying to do the map. I'm reading William Uber's comment on the chat saying, "Why do the recon? It's a waste of money on a storm that's not going to hit the USA." Well, they budgeted for it. And you know how government works. If you budget for something and you don't use the money, they give you less money next year. So they got to burn, if they got money to burn as far as sending out extra recons and extra planes, they're going to do it.
Why not? Vincent Croce on the chat board says, "What a weird path for this storm," and I would agree. And I'm sure you would agree too, Joe. I mean, like we've been doing this now for a good long time, and then you look at that projection of the track for this storm, and you do like a double take. Like what? What do they got doing? And it goes west, and then many of them are going straight south. South. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
that
mean, it has this late season storms in the Gulf of Mexico have a tendency to want to kind of go into the Southwest Gulf for one reason or another. Well, I mean, it's not. This isn't the first time that we've seen a storm go down in that direction. But it is unusual. It doesn't happen
well,
very
but
often.
they don't want to do that in November because they know winter is coming and they want to, go to the best, probably down by the Yucatan Peninsula, for example. I mean, the vacation prices are much lower now. We're past the high season down there, so
Right.
that's where the hurricanes like to go, right?
Yeah. Well, yes. Um, Radar tonight is you know pretty uneventful in the east. There's a few showers in South Georgia, and we've got the areas in Texas where we're seeing some severe weather and some flash flooding. In New Mexico, uh, this is mostly snow. Also into Colorado, radar kind of loading up there and pushing to the northwest. Not snowing in Denver at the moment, but it's to your south and trying to nudge back up. So probably by late tonight or tomorrow morning, the snow will have spread up into the Denver metro area and points north. Maggie P, I know you're waiting for another round of winter wonderland weather for you. The Storm Prediction Center, slight risk of severe weather in central Texas, along with that severe thunderstorm watch that we have up. As far as severe weather for tomorrow, it's also again in central Texas, just a little bit further east than it is tonight. We have no severe weather forecast for Saturday into Sunday, so that's a plus. And as far as precipitation goes, now this takes us through next Thursday night. So WPC was only showing a quarter of an inch or so for Sunday. So that kind of makes sense. But they've got half to three quarters and three quarters to an inch for much of New York State into New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So think along the lines of maybe a half an inch to three quarters of an inch maybe for that next weather front for next Thursday. Not much in the southeast at all, and some heavier precip of an inch and a half plus western Kentucky southwestward into Louisiana, where the amounts get up to about 2.5 inches in some places, and from Texas into Oklahoma, central and northwest Texas into Oklahoma, we're looking at an inch and a half to some cases 3 to 4 inches plus. And the precip that hangs back in Colorado and in north, especially in northeastern New Mexico, is in the form of snow. And we're looking at heavy rains in the Pacific Northwest, where you're seeing several to many inches from Northern California all the way up the coast and on up into British Columbia. Just want to go through the upper air really quickly because here we are. This is going back to Monday. You've got the ridge here in the southeast off the southeast coast. Again, remember when you got that upper high that's sitting in the southeast. In the southeast or off the southeast coast, it usually creates lower than normal pressures down in the Caribbean, and this is where we've seen a number of tropical storms generate in the last couple of months, and we may still see at least one more, I believe. And of course, you've got a deep trough in the west, big ridge in the east. Uh, Cold air is kind of kept way up into Canada in a flow like this. As we move along, we've seen this ridge kind of flex. It gets stronger, it gets weaker. So here we are for Thursday night, and we're actually starting to see it flatten out a bit. That should allow temperatures to take a step down tomorrow, although still will be above normal, and then a step down further for Saturday. The trough pulls out, ridge pops up. The system in the southwest, this very vigorous cutoff low in Arizona and New Mexico, that lifts up to the northeast, to the Great Lakes, and there's just enough of an identity to that short wave that we get a weather front that comes through the east. And for the northern mid Atlantic and on up into New England, we're talking about roughly maybe a quarter of an inch of rain. That goes out. Now, the ridge doesn't pop up like it did this past week or the week before. It tries to, but it doesn't get nearly as amplified. And then you have some kind of short wave that comes in from the Gulf of Alaska. Actually, you can trace it back, goes all the way back to, uh, you know, to Asia, and then it moves across the southern Aleutian Islands, comes into the Pacific Northwest on Monday, and then makes its way to the East Coast. And it's a rather vigorous upper low. It's also a strengthening upper low that moves across the northern Great Lakes. So this brings probably a more significant front with a bit more energy to it, and then it lifts out, but then there's more. There seems to be a parade of these systems coming across the Aleutians and the Gulf of Alaska to make their way into the eastern part of the United States. And I'm a little hopeful here. It's also a little bit blocky uh, when we get past mid-month. So I'm a little hopeful that we're going to get away from this, at least to get temperatures back down closer to normal. I think we could argue that I think we could argue the when that happens, but it does appear that it wants to go in that direction. And this particular model run, Joe, by the way, makes a hurricane in the Caribbean that takes it northeastward, up and just off the east coast in response to all these changes that are going on in the upper air. So there's that. But again, I'm a little hopeful that maybe if Sunday will be the beginning of something a little bit more where we get weather systems coming through on a bit more of a regular basis, and the ridge isn't there to suck all the moisture out.
I would put forward the fact that we have seen in the past Novembers that have been abnormally mild, if not downright warm, that have finished off on a cold note. There was one in particular, 1989, I think, where I think it was the week before Thanksgiving. We had this terrible squall line that came through out ahead of a big spell of warm weather, and I say it was terrible because it took convection into school not far from, it was in the Hudson Valley, not far from Albany. The wall fell down in the lunchroom. Actually, several school children were killed by that. Right after that, all of a sudden, the doors to the Arctic just opened up and cold air just poured in. That set the stage for a snowstorm on Thanksgiving Day, which I remember well because I had like 3 spinouts trying to get to work that morning on the Northern State Parkway, and also that led into an exceedingly cold, one of the coldest months in memory, December of '89.
Right.
Ironically, right after that, everything warmed up, and the rest of the winter, January, February, and March, were abnormally warm.
Oh yeah,
But
they were like 9 or 10 degrees above normal. I remember that. The coldest temperature of the winter was the morning after Thanksgiving at my house. It got down to 11 above because we had about 8 inches of snow in central Long Island, and by afternoon the temperature was 55. So, you know, that was it. That was pretty because and as cold as that December was, by the way, it didn't really snow very much until I think the day after Christmas. We got like 6 or 7 inches with a warm front, and then there was hardly any snow after that for the rest of the winter.
yeah, the whole winter was bundled into like a 5 or 6 week period. But again, it all started with that massive squall line that came through mid or late November. And up until then, everybody was saying, "Boy, it looks like it's going to be a very balmy winter." Well, it turned out to be a balmy winter, meteorological winter. I mean, except for December, but January and February were very mild, and so was March. But that December, wow, that was
All
a
right.
frigidly cold month of December.
Well, if you want a squall line, I'll take you through the GFS real quick here. And you can see the storm system in the Central Plains lifts up northward to the Great Lakes. And there's just enough moisture around for an area of rain to move through the Ohio Valley and across the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic uh, later in the day, Sunday night into early Monday, and then that goes out. And then, I said, there's this vigorous system that's coming in. You'll see a low that forms in Iowa and then goes up to the northern Great Lakes and really strengthens into like a pretty strong storm center there that's moving up toward James Bay with a fairly strong cold front. And at least on this run, Joe, the European also did this to some extent, generating quite a bit of rain for uh, uh, on this, ahead of it. You can see it here on the map. I mean, those are pretty impressive rain amounts. Just want to see what it does on the 24-hour precipitation. So it actually has like 2 to 3 inches of rain from this uh, for next Thursday, if you want to believe it. But let's get there. It's a week away. It may have the general idea, but it probably doesn't have the specifics right yet. And then after that goes out, it actually turns cold behind that, cold and windy behind that late next week, and takes us through next weekend. And then here comes this another tropical system that it brings across Cuba. And on this run, it tries to make a fairly strong storm that passes just offshore and brings snow to Maine and to New Brunswick. And this would be, right around the 20th or the 21st. Too far out in the long range to worry about it. But I think the takeaway is that the pattern looks like it's trying to change and trying to get away from this very dry and these spurts of warm weather where we run up to record and all-time highs. That needs to stop. I mean, that just needs to stop.
But November is known for doing crazy things like that, doesn't it? Or won't it? Or will it?
Yeah, I mean, November's kind of like March, in that, you can get a lot of volatility with cold air masses trying this, the beginnings of some colder air masses trying to come down, the last gasps of summer weather trying to hold on, and you get the interaction of that, and it becomes a problem. um, so anyway, Birder Lady hit super chat. Thank you, Birder Lady. Hoping you get rain in northwest New Jersey, because this dry weather we've had is getting awfully serious. And on that note, we should take it down a notch and close the week with a little Briller Jeopardy.
Tom Contino, in 1989, I was into my 11th year as a broadcast meteorologist working for a private weather forecasting service, doing everything from radio broadcasts to narrative summaries for insurance companies and lawyers on weather events of the past, forensic meteorology or whatever. So that's what I was doing in 1989. Don't know why you're interested in particular what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. So,
Okay. Let's
all
do a
right.
little Briller Jeopardy and finish off the week so I can go and finish my bottle of wine that I started last night.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Well, we'll
I
we
live
will.
classy here, Joe.
Yeah. All right. So let us go to Briller Jeopardy, and we put it on hold last night. On this Briller Jeopardy, average high temperatures in these select cities for November. Average high temperatures, Joe. And we will begin with a place that's not too far from where you are, Atlanta. Average high temperature in the month of November.
Oh God. You know what? I don't pay, to be honest, I don't pay as much attention as I should to what goes on in Atlanta. I mean, I do know what goes on here clearly. I'll say the average for the month of, I'll say 68.
a little bit on the warm side. Now, Mark Franz was very close. In fact, he's in snake country with a 63. Owen Daniel, not quite so close, but reasonable at 62.
Well, Rich Rothmansky's at 64,
And Rich
and,
Watsmansky gets it.
and so is
60.
Mark G and Vincent Croce, all at 64. So, okay, they got it.
Okay.
Next,
How about Boston?
Boston. Um, let's
Average
see,
high temperature in November.
60, 50, 55. I'll say for November, Boston, I'll say 50, 53.
You're in snake country with that, Joe, but Leon of Lindenhurst got it right on the nose with 52.
Oh,
52.
so did Phone King 1.
Right, Phone
And
King
so
won it.
did TC, Tom Contino, and
Maggie
Maggie
P.
P. and Latex
Latex
Dreams,
Dreams. Yes, okay.
also known
So
as Timothy Smart.
let's see if any of you are so good with this next one. The Windy City, Chicago.
3, 5. For Chicago, I'll say 51.
Again, Joe, you're in the land of the snakes, 51 degrees.
51. So it's either 52 or 49. I'm sorry,
Well, Rich
52 or
Watsmansky,
50, 52 or 50.
Rich Watsmansky has 49, but that's not the
Well,
right answer.
Birder Ladies has 50.
And Vincent Croce has 50. Louis Origio has 50. And that's it. Frank R. 50. Chauncey Tabby. Chauncey Tabby?
Yes,
50.
and Chuck
Chuck
Cardillo
Cardillo.
has 50.
So there you go.
So the
You're
answer's 50.
I'm going to give you all a bell with that one.
Give them a bell, Joe.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding. Yes. How about Buffalo?
How about Buffalo? All right, Chicago is 50. Chicago is 50, right?
Right.
So I think Buffalo's probably close to that. So I'll say 49.
So what is it with you? You're just swinging and barely, almost getting it right on the nose. But
Oh, okay. Well, Mark Franz got 48.
Mark Franz and Rich Rotmansky, 48. That is it.
Okay.
Let's go to the last one. Well, not the last one because we also have a bonus question. Here's one to throw a curve at you. Dallas, Big D. Average high
Um,
temperature in November,
so what did we say for Atlanta?
64.
64. So I'll say 67 for Dallas.
Oofa. He does it again. Comes within one.
Within one, I'm like it. My story for the whole, except for the first one. That's been four in a row. Um, so what
Now,
did I say?
Vincent,
What did I say? 67.
yes, you said 67.
All right. Maggie P said 66,
Nah, too cool.
and Frank R said 68.
Frank R., Vincent Croce, Mark G.,
Chuck
um,
Cardillo, Birder Lady, all at 68,
Daniel. Yeah, everybody
and
who
Mike
had.
Waterhouse, Bonsai.
Yes. Last one. This is the bonus. Caribou.
Oh, Caribou, my foot. Enough of Caribou. How about Sault Ste. Marie? How about International Falls? How about it's always Caribou? That's because I have no clue how to do that one. All right, so what did we say for Boston? What was Boston? 50 what?
52.
52? I'll say, although it got to 79 in Portland, Maine yesterday, um, I'll say for Caribou 46.
46? That
Yeah.
warm?
Oh, is
Birder
it? See, I lose perspective at at certain points.
Birder Lady is almost there. Just a tad too cool at 39.
At 39, so we know where that puts us. Vincent Croce said 40.
And that's where it is, 40 degrees.
40. All right. Yeah, because Cara, for some reason, there are certain places I cannot get my head around. Caribou is one of them. Denver's another one that I can't wrap my head around. So anyway, uh, anything exciting this weekend going on?
We're supposed to. Renata and I, we have been invited, or I was asked, to go glamping on Saturday night.
Oh, very nice. Where?
Where this is a place in Saugerties, New York,
Hmm.
and they said they would put us up in a. You remember the Ricky and Lucy, or the Desi and Lucy show, the 40-foot trailer,
Yeah, the long, long trailer.
long trailer. Well, we're going to be in an Airstream trailer
Oh,
overnight on Saturday
that's
night.
kind of cool.
And for that, I'm supposed to give a talk on the sky and the stars, and I said I'd
Oh,
bring
right. I
my.
remember you telling me this. Yeah.
The only problem is, and I think you are aware of this, sunny, beautiful day on Saturday, cloudy and a chance for rain developing on Sunday, and for Saturday night, looks like increasing cloudiness. And if
Well,
they
maybe
don't,
the clouds will hold off until late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And,
well,
it's a front, so it might just the clouds may just come in like a wall. So it could you could wind up being clear for most of the night.
we'll
By the
see.
way, do you have a belt sander?
Do I have a belt sander?
Yeah.
No, I don't have a belt sander.
Okay.
Why?
No, only because I was thinking if you had a belt sander, you could send Renata down. I bought a cedar chest. I bought this. I bought this. I needed a coffee table for my family room. So what I wanted was to get like like a cedar chest or a trunk and use that as sort of a coffee table, but at the same time I'd have the extra storage. Okay. So I went to a local thrift store here and I found it's a beautiful cedar chest, but whoever owned this chest decided that, I mean, Joe, there's no accounting for taste. They decided to paint it with,
Oh,
they decided to paint the outside green.
oh,
I mean, yeah, because when you open it up and you go look on the inside, it's all cedar and it's beautiful. And I just all I kept thinking was, and I got it for I paid it a brand new. This would easily be $500 or $600, and I got it for $90. Um, so I need to I need to sand it. The problem is that these people, again, they painted the outside of it green. All right, um, they used an oil base or a latex based paint, whatever what they use. That I have a regular sander. When you go on it, you know you stay in. You're going back and forth for 15 minutes, and you've barely gotten a very tiny section of the paint off. So my friend Addison, who's my neighbor, he was really very kind to help me out. He was doing the sanding. Um, Said that we really need to get our hands on a belt sander. So knowing that knowing how your wife loves to fix, appliances, snow blowers, chainsaws, and all the rest of it, I thought maybe she could put her tool belt on and you know fly down here and sand my cedar chest.
oh, cedar makes your life
Life
easier.
easier, yes.
It's funny. I haven't thought about this in like 50 years, but when I lived in the Bronx, when my after the divorce, after my mom and my sister and I moved in with her parents, my grandparents, and we went up to the room that was at one time my uncle Ron's room. There was a cedar chest there. I haven't thought about that cedar chest in years, and it was a beautiful cedar chest. And then, for reasons known only to God, I think my grandfather decided to do what those people did to your cedar chest. He painted it, not a green color. He painted it white, white acrylic paint. I think he used on the cedar chest. I don't know why he did that.
It's
Or
criminal. It's I really love the look of natural wood.
yeah.
And here's this gorgeous cedar chest, and it's perfect for what I need it for, and it's green. I mean, it's not it's not a it's like a dull green. They painted it. That's like, why? This just makes it. I want to cry. It's
Yeah.
so criminal. I don't want to cry. I'm very hesitant. A few of you mentioned taking using paint remover or paint stripper or whatever. I'm really hesitant to do that because I don't want to ruin the wood. And the part that came off with the sander, you're able to see what the natural wood looks like, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's just this beautiful, you know, it's this beautiful look. So anyway, I'll
My
have
my
to, I'll
my
just have to
father
go out and buy a belt sander.
my father-in-law, they had a china closet. I may be wrong. It was kind of like a teal green color. I think somebody painted it over. Anyway, he took it, he gave it to us, but before he did, he used a sander or whatever like that and took all the paint off, and it now sits. It has been sitting for all these years, not too far from where I'm sitting right now. It's actually a beautiful china closet, and he worked on it in his spare time or whatever like that, sanded it, uh, painted it, not painted, but shellacked it, I guess, or
Yeah,
whatever
or
like that.
polyurethane. Yeah.
It
Ma-
turned out to be beautiful.
Maggie P says you're under arrest for painting that cedar chest. Listen. Jail was too good for the person who did that. Okay, they should be burned at the stake.
Yeah.
Anyhow, all right. Well, that's first world problems. Let's put it that way. So, all right, I'm not doing much of anything this weekend except concentrating on getting that particular project done. So, have fun in your glamping trip, and we'll
If it
see.
comes off, we'll see. It may start off clear, but I really want it to be clear much of the night because if it turns out to be a nice area with a big field and dark skies, and I get to see a chance to see a lot of stars, this would not be the last time I would go up there. But if I'm only going to get, an hour or two in after sunset, I'm supposed to give the talk at 7 o'clock. I've already told him. I said I'll make the decision at noon on Saturday, whether or not we're going to go. And it sounds interesting. Renata certainly is intrigued, and we'll see. She'll play the role of Lucy and take 2 or 3 boxes of rocks and put them, distribute them, around the
Even evenly.
trailer, whatever. And I'll be Desi Arnaz and make believe I'm driving along the edge or rim of a mountain or whatever.
Yeah, Chauncey Tabby. The cedar chest is far worse.
Oh,
Uh,
by the way, one other thing, and I only learned this yesterday. I was watching, and the funny thing is, on Me TV, if you, and this is an artifact of the fact that my grandson, they drop my grandson, they being my son or my daughter-in-law, they drop him off with us 2 or 3 times a week in the morning, which means I have to get up. Renata has to get up like at 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready because they drop him off at 6:30. Now, normally I'm not up at 6:30. But at 6:30, sometimes you what do you do? So I turned on the TV the other day, and they're running on MeTV the colorized, not the colorized. The Andy Griffith Show started off in black and white. That's all you
right,
usually see.
and then it went to color.
It went to color for the last 3 seasons, and so in the morning on MeTV, you get a chance to see. No, not on MeTV, TV Land, TV
Okay,
Land.
TV Land.
They're running from like 7 to 9 o'clock the color version, the last 3 seasons of the Andy Griffith Show. And yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Ronnie Howard back then, Opie on the show, he had a friend, Johnny Paul. That was, in fact, he was on more than a few episodes. I kept looking at Johnny Paul, and I say to myself,
It was Keith Thibodeau.
it was Little Ricky.
Yeah, it was Keith Thibodeau. Yeah,
I didn't even
I've
realize
seen
that.
that episode. Those are some of the episodes he's been in.
I didn't even realize that until the other morning or whatever. I said, "Holy mackerel!" I did look it up on the internet, and Johnny Paul was I Love Lucy, Little Ricky, and later on it was Keith. How do you pronounce it? Theobald?
Thibodeau. Thibodeau.
Thib-
Yeah.
Thibodeau, or whatever. He didn't play the drums, by the way, on any of those
No,
Andy
he did.
episodes.
He did.
And you know what? Also, one other thing. You talk about jumping the shark. You know where that
Yeah.
came from? That TV terminology. That in 1976 or 77 they had Fonzie on Happy Days doing an Evil Knievel jumping across a pool of sharks
Is
in
that
his.
what where that came from?
I mean, like, who would believe something like that, right? That somebody would do
Yeah.
something like that, aside from Evil Knievel or whatever. And ever since then, something that is incredible or something that's difficult to accept on TV is called jumping the shark. Well, I saw an episode of the Andy Griffith Show the other day, and I found this incredible. Aunt B Aunt B complaining to Andy and Opie in the beginning of the show, nothing ever happens to me. Everything is never exciting in my life. I have nothing. And you know what she ends up doing? She ends up taking lessons flying a plane. I
Yeah.
don't even
Yeah.
remember this episode. I don't even remember that episode. But who would believe that Aunt B would learn how to fly a plane? And
Yes.
the show and the show ended with her flying solo in a plane.
Yeah.
Aunt
I actually remember that episode. And Frances Bavier was very difficult to work with, by the way.
Andy,
Yeah.
Andy,
She
dinner's on the
appar-
table. Come
she
home.
apparently gave Andy Griffith a real hard time
Yeah, yeah,
with scripts, and she was she was from the theater, so she was very disciplined. And when you're shooting, when you're doing theater, and then you're doing television or movies, it's a whole different experience. So she
right.
was used to the discipline of the theater, and would get annoyed if she had to wait to do whatever her scenes were or whatever it was. Anyway, on
Whatever.
that note, we will leave that at there. We'll leave that there, and we'll be back Sunday. Okay, no days off planned at the moment.
Yes.
So we'll be back Sunday at 7:35. Everybody have a great night and a safe weekend. We'll see you then. Night night.
Nighty night, Andy.